This week, our Kirby in the 70s series continues with a look at Captain America's Bicentennial battles, originally published as a treasury-size edition in 1976. Cap is sent on a trip through time meant to help him realize something about America. Does it make him think? Does the story stand up? Emmet and I discuss. First, I'd like to thank our patrons for helping to keep the show going. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo, where it's cold, talking with Emmet in Australia, where it's hot. How are you?
It's extremely hot. Very well, Tim. Thank you.
So, finally, for the first time this year, we're back with Jack Kirby's 70s stuff. And we're back to Captain America. And we're talking this time about a Treasury edition that came out June 15th, 1976, called Captain America's Bicentennial Battles. So, Treasury editions, I mean, this was a 70s thing. They measured 10 by 13 and a half inches, which I did the conversion. It's 25.4 centimeters to 34.29 centimeters. So, you know, they're pretty large. It won't fit in a comic bag, that's for sure. I don't know if they ever made treasury-sized comic bags, probably, but you know, I think by 1980 these had gone to the way of the dodo.
Yeah, we had a sort of resurgence then later on in the 90s and the aughts of remember the black and white phone book sized editions? I used to love those. What are they called? The Essentials? Is that what they're called?
I don't remember.
But I just love the Moorishness of them. You know,
yeah,
cheap paper
I remember that they did do that. I never bought any of them, but I remember here in Japan, I couldn't go to a comic shop, but I remember hearing about them. I could go to a comic shop, but they wouldn't have that stuff usually. Lots of Japanese content. So, of course, this is written and penciled and edited by Jack Kirby. The inker changes from chapter to chapter of this book. There's Barry Windsor Smith, there's Herb Trimpe, there's John Romita, basically those three. I thought this was kind of a fun book. I mean, it gets a little maudlin at times, but overall I thought it was enjoyable.
I think Kirby's return to Captain America, we've touched on this already because we did the issue 200. But Kirby's return is interesting to me because he's following Englehart, as we talked about. And Englehart was following Stan Lee. And Stan Lee was basically in his, I just don't care. It's like, I don't care what I'm doing. And then
put some words in the balloons.
Yeah.
Job done.
Let's see what we got here today. Fight a cyborg, you know, whatever. Red Skull. And Englehart comes in, and Englehart's trying to engage more with current events. And then Kirby comes back. And I find Kirby interesting because Kirby both has had real life experience of all of these, of war.
Yeah.
And like actual combat experience. And has an appreciation for history and is trying to reflect that in his writing. So, you know, Kirby's the one I have more time for. But like I've been reading reviews about this. And people are very dismissive, saying, oh, it's very simplistic. You know, and the morality is simplistic. I guess because we've just gone through Englehart. I've never found Kirby simplistic. I don't think that's the right phrase. I think he's direct. And I think he sort of calls it as he sees it. And maybe that's something that recent critics don't quite know what to do with. Because there's no sort of hedging of bets. It's like, that guy over there is a Nazi. But he's not German or doesn't have a red skull and he doesn't have a swastika. Yes, but look what he's doing. He's a Nazi. And like, that's the, other people go, I don't know, that might be offensive. I don't know.
Well, and then at the same time, like, that guy is an American, and you hear America in the background.
That's the other thing. Sorry, you're right. Absolutely. That's the other thing as well. He genuinely believes in America, but like, he does look around at the contemporary world, like Cap is looking around at the America he's woken up in and going, what the hell happened? That seems to be... and I find that that's a critical appraisal of the American project. That's an interesting moral point of view. That's when Captain America actually works. For years, Captain America had this problem because people were saying, and this is after Kirby, this is, again, because, other writers don't hit that note, and then he just becomes this sort of parody of himself. But people were saying, what's the point of Captain America? He's just a propaganda figure. And that's where you lose the reader, because you need to actually believe in America and hold America to account. That's the balance.
Right. Yeah. It's not, America never does anything wrong.
Yeah.
And this thing addresses things like slavery and Native Americans and that kind of thing, and things that we have always needed to appreciate a little better than maybe we do, to understand and kind of process.
Yeah. And
some people still have not, I think.
So yeah, Mr. Buddha, let's get into it.
Yeah, Buddha, yeah, it's Buddha. It's not the religious figure, but Captain America, from the very first page, has encountered this Mr. Buddha, who he is kind of a spiritual guy, but yeah, nothing to do with Buddhism. And Cap has been invited to Mr. Buddha's quarters. That's the word Cap uses, a very military word, quarters. And Cap has come in and he sees Mr. Buddha in lotus position in this kind of strange, how do you even describe it? Kind of sitting on this kind of cushion that has this gold
dais.
Framework around it.
We'd call it a dais, or you're referring to the actual cell itself that he's sitting within. Okay. Yeah, let's call it a cage.
Okay.
For the sake of the listener, let's just
it's
call it
not
a cage.
like he's trapped in it, but there's room between the bars to get out. But yeah, it's kind of a cage.
There was the story of pre-Christian mystics would have themselves sealed in walls so that they could have a sensory deprivation experience, and then as a consequence of that, enter into a sort of meditative state. So it's similar. It's this idea of removing yourself from the world. Are you smiling because the cat's made her appearance?
Yes, I see a cat tail behind you there.
Yep.
Mr. Buddha is bald, of course. That's important.
Of course.
You got to be bald for this kind of role. And then on the next page, Mr. Buddha's astral form comes flying in and reunites with his body, and the body wakes up and gets out of the cage. There's actually like a glass door on the side that he opens and steps out. And it calls it the energy pyramid.
There you go. Because Captain America makes mention of transcendental meditation in the next page, and I think, energy pyramids, all this kind of stuff, that is suggestive of the Wilhelm Reich, and the idea of, what was his, orgone collectors? Do you ever hear of orgone collectors, Tim?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Wilhelm Resch, he was a parapsychologist, psychologist, and he got drummed out of the Vienna Society for Psychoanalysis that Freud had been instrumental in, because his basic thesis was that whenever we orgasm,
Okay.
we expel a kind of energy, and that energy can be captured and channeled. This was his thesis.
Okay.
This is one of his. He was actually a very wide thinker, but that's the one everyone remembers him for.
Yeah, it sounds like a way to get chicks, but
Yeah, well, he was quite a serious. He was an anti-fascist, interesting character. He had to go to America, and he got basically hounded by your Secret Service. We don't need to get into it right now, but needless to say, he is a figure touched on by Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, but very much in the sense of orgasms. But he's written some very interesting books, and if people are interested, check them out. But I wanted to throw all that in there because the mention of transcendental meditation by Captain America, we are recording this on January. Well, I won't say the date, but we're recording it just as news has broken that David Lynch has died. And David Lynch was a practitioner of transcendental meditation and a very sort of interesting, puckish, chaotically creative character. And I saw people on Reddit asking for recommendations of David Lynch inspired comics to read. And everyone was saying Grant Morrison, Grant Morrison, Grant Morrison, right?
okay.
I would suggest Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby. Because Jack Kirby, like David Lynch, has this sense of Americana and fully runs headlong into the weird. First pages of this comic. It's Captain America walking in on this guy in his orgone chamber, and his astral self comes through the window, and it's like, okay, let's have a chat, let's rap. And this feels like David Lynch to me. Okay? And that's where I'm trying to zero in on why I've been enjoying this Jack Kirby run with you so much. Because I'm going, yeah, this guy's also just somebody who just has ideas and he just lets them out into the world.
Yeah, well, we've certainly seen some weird ideas in some of these comics, but
yeah. And that's kind of the freewheeling creativity that I respond to with enthusiasm. And David Lynch had that in spades as well. Anyway, R.I.P. Mr. David Lynch, amazing director and artist and musician, and I miss him. Carry on.
Okay. So Mr. Buddha says to Cap, the doors to eternity fly open. Thus you can view things with a universal eye, such as a symbol of your country. You could view it as you never have before. Destiny and duty wills it. But Cap's, just kind of rolling his eyes and he's heading for the door. And we see that he's walked through some Kirby crackle. There's a lot of Kirby crackle in this. You know who drew this. And the next thing he knows, he's in kind of an MC Escher environment and finds a door in the floor that he intentionally falls into and lands among a bunch of Nazis.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah. More, you fall in a hole, and of course you find more Nazis in there. And
it's another hole full of Nazis.
So of course he takes them out, not killing them, but punching them, knocking them out. And then he encounters some more Nazis one of them is slapping someone, and it turns out it's Hitler and a couple of cronies, and the person getting slapped is Bucky, who of course is still dead at this point. This is decades before he was brought back as the Winter Soldier.
Did you know that Stan Lee teased him coming back? Then it turned out it was a robot.
Oh, really?
That's the kind of creativity Stan Lee brings to the table. It's a robot. Sucks to be you.
I'm blanking now. Who was? Oh, Ed Brubaker. That's the name I'm trying to come up
Ed
with.
Brubaker,
Who,
yes, brought back Winter Soldier.
Did the Winter Soldier stuff originally before the movies picked it up.
And he made more money from the movies as a bit part actor.
Yeah.
Than he
He
did from
shows up
writing the
in
comic.
one of the films, and I think he might have like one word line or something.
He gets residuals from that shit.
Oh yeah. So coming up kind of behind Cap is, of course, the Red Skull, but Cap expects that he must be there because Hitler's there, and isn't ambushed by him. So, of course, a fight breaks out between Cap and all these Nazis, and because Bucky's tied to the chair, he can't help.
Yeah. This is deeply satisfying. Just,
Yeah, right off the bat, Hitler. I mean, we're
gonna punch the shit out of Hitler.
Where can we go from here? We were starting at the top already. Cap punching Hitler.
It's amazing.
Doing a Larry Curly and Moe smashing his head into somebody else's head. Crunch. Not pop, 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 but crunch.
Crunch. Noses were broken.
Yes.
No more Colombian marching powder for Hitler.
So presumably now everybody's unconscious. So Cap unties Bucky and is, like, of course, totally shocked to see Bucky alive after all this time. And as he unties Bucky, more Nazis come in the door, and so the two of them jump out the window with shots whizzing by them and pieces of broken glass as they've broken through the windows. And they land in some woods, and they're running through the woods, and they get thicker and thicker, and Bucky's out ahead of Cap, and then suddenly he's gone, and more Kirby crackle, and Cap is back with Mr. Buddha. And so that's kind of what we're set up for this whole thing, these kind of 3-4 page visitations of some time and place, and then Cap disappears from that reality again.
Mr. Buddha has a bit of a snarky line as well here. You know, you never found the exit, did you, sir? Like, just, you sarcastic dick.
The universe has many doors. You may have opened the wrong one. I can understand your confusion. So, of course, Cap is just angry. You know, it's we're still early in the book here. It's too soon for him to be like kind of anything accepting of anything Mr. Buddha says. But Cap kind of like, okay, well, he said, Mr. Buddha, you're a spellbinder. You made me think in ways I never have before. And so they shake hands, and Cap thinks he's going to go home now. But what he doesn't know is that Mr. Buddha has stuck this psychic talisman on Cap's palm, and that's going to take him through a trip through an America which none other has seen.
That's a torturous sentence, isn't it?
There are some of those in this book, yes. So Cap finds himself in this kind of hallway, and he's seeing visions of a lot of soldiers of some past time or place.
It looks like Civil War conflict.
Civil War,
or it could be a frontier war.
Well, yeah, on that first smaller panel, that's definitely a Civil War era soldier hat. But he goes outside the building, and he's in, contemporary America, New York, I assume. And so he catches a cab, and he's talking with the driver, and then suddenly he notices the light coming from his palm, and he sees the talisman stuck there. And suddenly he's not in the taxi anymore. He's in an old-fashioned coach. And he gets out, and he's like in the 1700s.
Can we just touch on something quickly before we get back to the 1700s? I've noticed that Kirby insists on characters talking about how our heroes are Marvel comic book characters. Like, they will bring up, like the taxi driver says, "Oh, I'm going to get you to sign my Marvel comics." And in the Eternals, we had, "Oh, they look like Marvel characters," and those students built the Incredible Hulk
robot, like
based on the comic book.
Right, it seemed to be based on a comic book, not on the existence of an actual Hulk.
So he keeps having this commentary on, "Oh, these are comic book characters within the world." I just just making note of it. It's interesting. It becomes a little more postmodern with the likes of Dan Slott years down the line, but Kirby just sort of has it as a fact that Marvel comics exist in the Marvel universe.
Well, yeah, I mean, for Eternals, since those were his own characters, it felt like he was trying to say this is not the Marvel universe. This is some other universe.
That's what we discussed before.
But you can't really do that with Cap. With Cap, I mean, Cap's already established as being in the Marvel universe with Spider-Man and Hulk and everybody.
Yeah.
But Kirby's still kind of trying to have it that way here.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I got very excited when I was reading John Byrne Avengers comics, and you had Hawkeye making Batman and Robin jokes. There's the issue when he meets the Great Lakes Avengers, and he says, "Oh, it's Flatman and Ribbon," and so the Marvel characters knew about DC comics, but Kirby I just think it's just an interesting, jarring moment for the reader, because I think it reminds you that don't take this too seriously. These are fictional characters, and they are conscious of the fact that people are reading about them. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I almost expect Cap to say, "Hi, reader."
Yeah,
waving.
Yeah, it just makes things a little looser, and I appreciate that. Don't take it so seriously.
So he gets out of this coach. It's around the time of 1776. He's in Philadelphia, he finds out. And of course, everybody's kind of not sure what to make of his costume. And then he runs into real life Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah. Who isn't avoiding his wife. He spent years overseas rather than actually spend time with his wife, and then she died, and then he came back. Bit of a louse.
Yeah, he was supposedly quite a womanizer. You wouldn't think it, but from looking at the image we usually see of him with the balding and the glasses and overweight and whatever. But yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I do wonder about that. Like, was he a successful womanizer, or did he just throw the cash around and have various people on his arm and ensure that reputation was circulated? He was in France. He needed to keep his game up.
So, of course, Cap is really impressed to run into one of the founding fathers. Benjamin Franklin is kind of impressed with Cap's costume and has someone go find Mistress Betsy. Okay, and so she arrives, and Cap is kind of slow to pick up what's going on here. But what we have here is kind of a Chuck Berry Back to the Future situation.
Yes,
where where they're so impressed with Cap's costume that they decide Betsy Ross decides to pattern the flag on on Cap's costume.
It's your cousin Marvin Berry. This white guy's here inventing rock and roll. This is not racist at all. This is the second time, to my knowledge, that Benjamin Franklin has met a Marvel superhero, because Doctor Strange also interacted with Benjamin Franklin. And then Benjamin Franklin seduced Clea. So
Oh, yeah, I remember. That was much
Remember
more
that?
recent. I remember that, yeah.
So, well, it's Englehart era. It was Englehart era, but Doctor Strange. But yeah, so I think he must be getting used to all these costume people popping into his back garden.
Yeah. And when Cap realizes what the paradox he's created here, he just like completely freaks out and goes running out into the street. And he just wants to get out of there. He's thinking, get me out of here, Buddha. Wherever you are, get me out of this place. And someone taps him on the shoulder, and he turns around, and he's not in Philadelphia in the 1770s anymore. Well, he figures out in a few panels that he's in America in the 1930s. And no date or year is ever mentioned, but if you Google the clues, you can figure it out. So there's a newsboy shouting out the headline, "Dillinger flies the coop," which puts this in about May 1933.
Yeah. There's also the Gable Crawford movie poster.
Right. Yeah, Clark Gable, Joan Crawford. And the guy who's tapping Cap on the shoulder is, a guy who's down on his luck because it's the Depression after all. And when he's saying, if you'd like, I can steer you to a soup kitchen that hands out free meals, because he's not sure what the deal is with Cap, if he's unhoused or what's going on.
Yeah.
And Cap talks with the newsboy for a while. He'd like to look at the date on the newspaper, but the newsboy says, what, you can't afford a nickel to buy a newspaper?
And here we have yet another example of artists not being able to draw children.
Yeah.
I saw again that famous panel from, I think it's John Byrne, the second mention of this episode, of Scarlet Witch walking in on her two twins in the bathtub, and they look like middle-aged men. This newsboy again, like, why can't they draw children? I don't understand. But
so then some apparently mobsters come along in a car to buy a newspaper, except that they don't pay the nickel. They take the paper and just shove the newsboy in the face. Cap blows his stack, rips the door off the car with the mobster's head poking through the window.
it's very Jack Reacher. If you've seen the Amazon Prime show, that's kind of what Jack Reacher would do.
Okay.
Rip a guy off through the door.
So the mobsters respond by opening fire, and Cap gets himself and the newsboy behind his shield. And the cops come and the mobsters drive off. Except that the guy with his head in the window is still there, and he's angry, but the cops are kind of like, yeah, whatever. Imagine doing that to Lefty Larkin, the cop says. Now explain your pals firing their rods. Okay, so then the newsboy says, they almost shot us both full of holes. Lock him up in the cooler, Clancy. Nobody's safe in this town while cheap hoods like Lefty are cruising around. Make 'em pay for my papers. They're scattered all over the block. When I get to be a big shot artist, I'm going to plaster Lefty's ugly mug all over the comic pages.
Oh.
Guess who this poorly drawn child is?
It's a self-portrait.
Yeah. So Jack Kirby was like 15 years and 9 months in May 1933. So he's a little short for 15, but yeah, I think, maybe that's part of the reason he's poorly drawn, because he kind of looks like adult Jack Kirby.
He just needed a cigar, and we would have all gone, oh, it's Jack Kirby as a child. He's like the baby for Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, Kirby was modeling on a photo of himself when he was in his mid-20s or 30s, maybe.
Yeah.
So as it's revealed who the newsboy is, the mark on Cap's palm lights up again, and now he's apparently in the Southwest. You see cactus and rocks and no grass, no city. and he turns and he sees some Native Americans with rifles. And they're trying to figure out what to make of him because he's a white guy, but he's not wearing the colors of the white troopers, the guy says. But their leader says, hold your fire, let's question him. The leader turns out to be Geronimo. So name brand 19th century American Indian. And at first, some of them still want to shoot Cap, and Cap manages to fight them off. But then he talks with Geronimo, and Geronimo sees that Cap's on their side. Because Cap stands for everybody getting along. We're all Americans.
Have you been following Dennis Camp's writing on the Ultimates, the new comic book, The Ultimates, which is a new take on what if the Avengers were in another world and history happened differently. So they've just introduced Ultimate Hawkeye, who is a Native American, and I won't spoil the issue for people who, because it's just recently come out, but there is a confrontation between Cap and this Hawkeye character, and Cap is sort of at pains to explain how reasonable he is. And I kind of, it's sort of a more self-conscious take on the white savior trope, which is, we've gone from you can feature characters of different ethnicities, but they must be submissive to the principal white character. They must be the sidekick. They must be the help. They must be the magic Negro. Whatever it is, that's the white savior. But whereas now it's like, it's really difficult to have all these conversations about race. But I'm on your side. I swear to you, I am. And I don't know. It just left me feeling a bit. Just take the L. We're awful. Like, just let that be the start of the conversation. I don't know. It just is interesting character idea. I mean, why Clint Barton, a white dude, is running around calling himself Hawkeye? Okay, well, Hawkeye in the original story, Last Mohicans, is a white guy who was raised within a tribe. But having a Native American take the name seems like an interesting idea. And it seems like an interesting comment on, appropriating all the aspects of Native American culture that white people fancy for themselves. But yeah, just Cap being so reasonable really bugged me. Just really bothered me.
Well, what should he do then?
I don't know. Just maybe just say sorry. Just, start from there. Don't be like, no, I get it, man. I'm with you. I'm like, no, you're not.
So, but then, Cap realizes that he's kind of caught between both sides because, the troopers are Americans too, and they're military, and but he doesn't want them to shoot the Native Americans. And then bullets start flying because the troopers are coming. And so Geronimo's side, they take off on their horses. And Cap is left to try to calm the troopers down. And of course, the troopers are kind of confused too by Cap's clothes. We get a big double page shot of the troopers coming on their horses, and a awfully huge horse jumping over Cap.
Yeah, is your splash page clipped? The soldier's face just above the border?
Yeah, there's a pretty wide bottom margin on this. I'm not sure what's going on there. Well, sometimes they used to put like ads for house ads at the bottom of some pages. There might have been a house ad there.
Because I feel like this is a bigger piece of art that's been constrained. It's been cropped.
Well, could be that too, but I'm wondering if maybe along the bottom there might have been an ad for another Marvel comic or something.
Because maybe if we pulled out more, the scale of that giant horse would be a little more relative, proportionate.
Yeah, I guess that horse is supposed to be in the foreground, in front of Cap. But since he doesn't overlap Cap, it's a little hard to parse that, the dimensions. More on Captain America's Bicentennial battles coming up. We figure out the real reason for those wide bottom margins. This podcast is part of the Deconstructing Comics Network, where we're grateful to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get exclusive extra content. At $2 a month and up, hear Bat Bits, a Batman 66 exploration with my brother Paul. At $4 a month, you also get our new monthly show Silver Age Batman, where I discuss Batman comics from the 50s and 60s with either Paul, Patrick, Emmet, or Kumar, as well as our previous series on Jim Starlin's run on Captain Marvel and the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics. And thanks for your support.
Hello, I'm Ken Holzhauser, and if you're looking for something new in comic books, may I recommend my newest comic, The Quick and the Dad, a love letter to the DC, Marvel, Archie, and Harvey comics of my youth. This comic has everything. It has spaceships, dad jokes, alien invasions, time travel, supervillains, and so many bad puns. Hopefully you'll like it. It's the cutest comic you've never heard of, and it's available today in print and digital from indieplanet.com. That's The Quick and the Dad. Join that other dynamic duo, won't you?
Cap is saying, stop, listen to me, and they're all still charging after Geronimo's side. And then the next page is also a full-page panel where Cap is saying, there is another way, we're all Americans. And he's got his palm out, and you can see the mark on his palm, which is about to send him someplace else.
I kind of want that in a T-shirt. I know it's becoming my catchphrase on this show almost, but I do love Kirby art, and I think that's just a beautiful image. It's very heartfelt.
Yeah. Oh, and this page also has a wide bottom margin. I wonder if there was another house ad there. Well, actually, now that I look at it, all the pages are like that. I wonder, maybe. Well, it might have to do with the dimensions of the Treasury edition. It's probably different, if compared to a regular comic size, it must have been wider. If you just take a regular comic size and stretch it out, it leaves a bunch of space at the bottom, apparently. I'm not quite sure how to express what I want to say, but if I compared it to the regular comic dimensions, I guess that's what would happen. That must be it. It's just, the dimensions of the treasury size. If the treasury size were taller, then we wouldn't have that big margin at the bottom. But I want this on a T-shirt and then wear it to a MAGA rally.
You would get killed. They would murder you, and then no one would talk about you.
And now Cap is under some debris and other guys pulling him out. And it turns out that he's in a coal mine that has partially collapsed. And there are a bunch of guys who are trapped in there and concerned about the air getting used up by how many of them there are.
The man looks almost a bit, well, he's got the helmet on. Yeah, he's just got a mining helmet on. I thought for a second, for a split second, I thought it was Thor.
Well, he's blonde and he's muscular.
He's got a helmet on.
Yeah, what are you doing here? You're Norse. So Cap's trying to figure out a way out, of course, but yeah, if they dig into the walls, they might just collapse further. But now there's also gas coming in.
Yeah.
So they got to do something or they're finished. And Cap, of course, because he's Cap, he does manage to dig through some of the debris and get to a place where they can get away from the gas. Found another kind of air hole. And then they see a gap in the ceiling where they can try to work towards that and get out. But Cap has vanished by this point.
Okay, so at this point, the pattern's established itself. We're coming into chapter 4. Can I just take a moment to say, this comic's called Bicentennial Battles. And so much of it is like significant moments in American history that don't necessarily feature a battle, but they sort of reflect a turning of the corner in American history. It's sort of an interesting sort of luring the reader in with Cap's going to punch out all these people, and it's like Cap's on Skid Row, Cap's inspiring the American flag, Cap's having a conversation with Geronimo to try and figure out another way to coexist. Like there is something interesting there.
Well, yeah, marketing. Let's use the word battles.
Yeah, saving some guys in where were we? Were we in Kentucky? Was it Kentucky mine or is it
possibly? I'm not sure that a state is ever mentioned here, and we don't really know the time frame of this either. Presumably 20th or century some point, or perhaps late 19th. It's not really clear from their clothes. Well, the one guy's wearing a hard hat with a lantern on the front of it.
That's what I was going to go with too. Yeah.
So it's probably 20th century at some point. But why do you suppose Kirby included this bit? I mean, his choice of places where Cap goes is kind of interesting.
Because it's a massive number of deaths occurred due to like just unsafe mining and just all these people from these poor parts of America just getting slaughtered, in effect, just getting sent down to the dark and then dying horrible deaths. And it's just sort of unreflected upon. It's like, their deaths were a statistic.
Yeah.
And, Captain America here is showing some compassion for them. He actually saves them.
But another question that I don't think is ever resolved, is Cap really going to these places, or is that all an illusion?
This is what I was thinking about. Like, when he rescues Bucky from being murdered by the Nazis, I was like, wait, so couldn't that be the storyline that led to the Winter Soldier if Bucky actually didn't die?
Well, of course, Bucky died on that airplane that blew up, so
well, maybe he didn't. Maybe he was recovered, and then they were torturing him, and Captain America happened upon that, and then the Soviets picked him up, and he became Winter Soldier. But yeah, no, I thought that too. I was like, is he just creating multiple variant timelines here, or is he actually altering history?
But yeah, that part of it doesn't seem to be important to Kirby. Just
it's a bit of fun.
Cap being in those time periods is the point, whether he actually went there or not. But yeah, Cap has disappeared from the coal mine. He's now in a World War I air battle. The Red Baron or somebody is flying behind him, shooting at his plane. Yeah, this is the beginning of chapter 4. And yeah, there are soldiers below, American soldiers, I guess, who are trying to shoot at the plane that's trying to shoot down Cap. And yeah, Cap is saying he's trained at jet fighters, but now he's finding himself in, he calls it this tricky antique, trying to figure out how to control it.
Admittedly, this is a battle.
Yeah, this is definitely a battle.
This is a battle.
And Cap wins, of course, by flying his biplane turned 90 degrees between some trees, and the enemy plane can't tilt fast enough and crashes into the trees.
The scale of that just hurts my brain a bit when I look at it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible or not, but who cares?
It's good. It's a good moment.
Yeah, I want to see the movie version of this.
Yeah, I'm not going to write a 12,000 word blog about how this doesn't make sense. Tim, I've read some weird blogs about this. I've just got to, we're not going to dwell on it because I've already taken up enough of your time, but I've read some weird bloody people writing about this collection. People have opinions.
Okay. So Cap is looking over his shoulder and seeing what happened, but then when he faces forward again, he sees that his plane is headed directly at a hot air balloon piloted by the enemy. And so he jumps out of the plane because that's the only way, and right into the Kirby crackle again, and finds himself back at Mr. Buddha's place. And of course he's tired of this and he wants to stop doing this, and he's still angry at Mr. Buddha. But Mr. Buddha says, "How little you seem to have gained from such a valuable experience. Did you really expect the march of this great nation to be a form of mock pageantry?"
Yeah. It's beautiful. This is beautiful. I really like that. Like, what do you think you represent? You know.
Cap wants to get rid of the mark on his palm, but Mr. Buddha says it will vanish by itself when it's done its work. So the great superhero is uncomfortable with the sharing of human events. You want to lead a parade and smile to the crowds. You think this kind of thing is the total sum of your country. Is this the shallow facade that is Captain America?
Oh,
ouch.
Oh,
Cap doesn't like that at all.
Beautiful.
And in a couple panels, he's now in, my Googling is correct, in the 1880s. And he's facing John L. Sullivan, who was the heavyweight champ of the time, who punches Cap. And so Cap finds himself in a battle with the boxing champion of all time, as he thinks. And it's mentioned in this time period, boxing was still illegal. So I'm a little surprised there's any record of who the champion of the time was, if it was an illegal activity. But
well, what you do, Tim, is you pay off the cops.
I guess so. Yeah, and in the 1880s, it probably wasn't that hard. Well,
sure, I'll let you off this one time. So, see, I can do Tammany Hall jokes. I can. Nobody else can. That's mine.
But yeah, Sullivan is speaking in kind of Irish accent?
Yeah, probably.
And a bunch of guys with derbies and mustaches and cigars are shouting him on, Sullivan. But of course he's Cap, so he manages to punch out the heavyweight champion of all time, who is amused and intrigued by being able to actually feel his opponent's punches. But Cap's got super soldier serum, so... But apparently it takes a lot for the super soldier serum to best John L. Sullivan. I don't know, maybe he had 19th century super soldier serum.
It's called whiskey.
Yeah, maybe
whiskey.
So. But just as Cap punches him out, then the cops come in. So not well paid off enough, I guess.
Yeah, someone forgot to drop off the brown envelope.
Yeah, and arrests everybody. And Cap is trying to drag Sullivan out of the way, and then at that point he shifts to another time, and he's got a gun pointed at his head. And we pull back, and now he's in apparently the 1850s, and in the role of an abolitionist trying to help a runaway slave. But he's got a bunch of slave hunters, people who hunted for runaway slaves, from the South. And they're not even really supposed to be there because where they are is free territory.
Yeah, but this is something that was done. Yeah.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Capture and send them down the river. Yeah.
So, of course, Cap tries to tell them that. They don't care. But a young guy nearby sees what's going on and thinks that his dad would be upset that there were slavers on their property. So he takes some shots at them, not trying to kill anybody, but just trying to disrupt things enough. Looks like he shoots the gun out of a guy's hand. And that gives Cap and the African-American guy a chance to start punching out the other slavers.
I sure started one doozy of a fracas. I'm impressed that kid knows the word fracas.
It breaks the fences, but he thinks, I wonder what Pa's going to say about them busting our fence like that. But again, Cap and the black guy punch everybody out. So, that's a theme of this. Let's punch everybody out and then set things right. And Cap and the escaped slave both get on horses. I guess they're horses belonging to the slavers, and have some, friendly words and go in different directions. And
Cap does kind of condescend to him a bit, though. One day things will be different. You'll both learn to talk instead of fight. I'm going, get fucked, Cap. You need to go on more time traveling trips. You haven't learned humility yet.
If Jack Kirby could actually predict the future, he could have dropped Cap at a MAGA rally or something. And
don't talk to black people about respectability politics. Get fucked. But we do end this sequence with the reveal of John Brown,
who turned out to be the dad of the guy who took the shot.
Yeah, and his kids were involved with his activities later on in life. But John Brown has become a popular meme recently, I've noticed. There's been a sort of resurgence of interest in John Brown. They did that show with Ethan Hawke playing him. But in response to the MAGA sort of rewriting of history, I have seen this meme saying, John Brown did nothing wrong. He killed slavers. What's the problem? There's been a sort of reappraisal of him, let's say. I find it interesting that Kirby also decides to include him in this narrative as a person of interest.
So Cap is on this horse, and the environment kind of changes again, and he's in more of a desert area again. And again, in this sequence, I thought Cap was kind of slow to figure out where he was. I mean, I figured it out long before he did. But he's approached by... The horse dumps him and runs off. And then Cap is approached by a Jeep. And there are some, more, not 1970s, but somewhat more modern-looking soldiers in it who recognize him. And they're saying, we got to get you out of here because this is going to be dangerous. And Cap is like, oh, really? Expecting a tornado or something? I'm like, no, Cap. Read the room here. Desert, dangerous, maybe like 1940s.
Well, no, let's think about this. Cap was already in the ice when they dropped the bomb.
But sure, but he's come back since then, and he's come back. He's on the reading. He must know now about atomic weapons testing.
He did what?
And he's thinking as he's sitting in the Jeep, there's something going on. Perhaps desert maneuvers? But they're stopped by another soldier who says it's 5 minutes to doomsday, and then Cap's like, ah. Yeah, the caption says, it is the word doomsday which triggers the thought in Cap's mind. Now you know where you are. So then he's joins some other military high-ranking people and other dignitaries in suits, and is handed a pair of goggles to watch the nuclear test. And with the explosion, then Cap again disappears, and just his goggles are left. And everybody else like, what? He disappeared. Where'd he go?
I mean, they're bloody lucky because, we if you have a superhero walking nearby a explosion event, you could end up with a Hulk type situation. And he's got some
the Cap Hulk
serum stuff in his blood. Who knows if I'd respond to nuclear fallout. But he gets zipped away. He gets free jacked to another time period. Is that a reference you understand, Tim? Free jack?
Free jack? No.
Oh my goodness! All right, that's how old I am, folks. I remember free jack.
Okay, well, I think I'm older than you, but I don't. It's some other media I didn't consume, I guess.
Yeah. It was a movie with Emilio Estevez and Rene Russo and Anthony Hopkins and Mick Jagger from the very early 90s, where this character gets is transported forward in time. Anyway. Shenanigans ensue.
By that time I was in Japan and there wasn't internet yet, and there were a lot of movies that I never even heard of in that time period.
This is a particularly bad one, but I enjoy it a lot.
So now he's, spoiler, he's in the Chicago fire. It's the Chicago Kirby Crackle fire, too. I didn't know regular old flames had Kirby Crackle, but I guess so.
They found a way, yeah.
And we get a nice full page of the fire brigade at the time racing down the street.
We've got to go to a rich person's house. Get out of the way. No one on the street has paid their dues to us, so we're going to let it burn to the ground.
So there's a guy who wants to get back into his building and rescue his stuff, and Cap's like, no, you're going to die in there. And then a wall collapses, and again, Cap's shield saves himself and the guy from this collapsing brick wall. And there's some talk about, Cap finally figures out they're in Chicago because the guy mentions it. And he says, Chicago at the time of the Great Fire, I suspected as much. The old city shall be gutted. The guy says, sure looks like it. Let's get out of here. There'll be nothing but a mountain of ashes when the fire dies down. Cap says, that won't faze Americans. They'll build a new city here, a city they'll write songs about. And everybody's heading for the Chicago River, and Cap hears someone shouting, save me, I can't swim. So Cap dives in, but then while he's in the water, there's Kirby Crackle in the water even. Kirby Crackle's everywhere. And
so that person drowned.
I guess so. Cap didn't get a chance to save him. And now he's got a shark after him, so he knows he's not in the Chicago River anymore. And so he's underwater, and of course he has no breathing apparatus, and he's having some serious trouble breathing. But a couple of scuba divers come along and take unconscious Cap into this underwater station and give him some oxygen and revive him. So this one also, it's a little unclear when this is. Obviously fairly recent. It's underwater, undersea research station. And so he talks with the guy there a little bit, and then he disappears again. Now, this time, the person in the time he's visiting sees him fading away.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that's the first time that's happened. Maybe the only time in this whole book. The guy says, What in heaven's name? You're fading like a ghost. Cap says, no, friend, I'm merely leaving. Goodbye and thanks. More Kirby Crackle, and now he's back with Mr. Buddha, who is hanging upside down. And Cap says, you sure have a strange way of hanging around. Mr. Buddha says, spare me your puns, sir. They generate negative vibrations in this most positive state.
Okay. Mr. Buddha and I are on the same page. No puns. I hate puns.
Yeah, I grew up with my dad making puns, and I make puns, and I never got the antagonism toward puns. But
they're just irritating.
Cap says, I'd find it easier to adjust to hanging, Buddha. I'm looking forward to the end of my trip. The America I've seen is the America I've always known. I've never been fool enough to believe that this country is made of heroic monuments or fanciful accounts created to inspire people to patriotic fervor. Mr. Buddha says, yes, you've known it, the triumphs and the tragedies, the people at their best and at their worst, men building and destroying. But your conclusion is rather hasty, I'd say. However, with a little time left to you for further insight, you may yet stumble on the truth. So Cap's like, what? You're sending me on more trips? And the next place he goes is the moon. And it's interesting. The astronaut uniform looks kind of 1950s sci-fi, but he's actually in the future. And there's a bicentennial battle going on the moon. So apparently American troops and somebody else's troops are firing weapons at each other on the moon.
There's a recent movie with Brad Pitt, Ad Astra, which depicts a moon that's you can now go there as a tourist, and there are sort of like commercial districts on the moon. But if you go outside of the sort of safe zones, you do have moon pirates and like scavengers and people on buggies shooting penetrating projectiles, and this is very similar to that movie.
I see. So he finds some kind of moon vehicle that's wrecked, and looks in the window of it. Can't see a thing. The interior is a jumbled mess of smashed circuits. And then over the course of 9 panels, this is a different transition from what we've seen. We see him through that window that he's looking in, and we gradually kind of pull back from him, and there are just these kind of psychedelic swirls around the window, and then zoom kind of little by little back in on him again in his regular uniform, no more astronaut suit. And in the last panel, we see he's now reflected in a movie camera lens. And the cameraman is saying, hey, fellow, where did you come from? Somebody else off panel says, how did he get on the set? And he's now in the golden age of Hollywood. When would that be exactly? 40s, 30s?
30s, 40s, yeah.
Yeah. And he's appeared on the movie set where they're trying to shoot a film that he's now interrupted. And he walks through it, and then some other promoter finds him and thinks that in that suit he'd be great in their musical number. And he's talking to his boss, who's also his father-in-law, who doesn't like the idea. And of course, this bigwig is referred to by his initials, JB. That's a real trope of old Hollywood type situations. But JB relents, and Cap is taken to the set where this musical is shooting. And all he's supposed to do is just stand there while dancers are, doing their stuff around him. All these young women, about a third of whom look like Cersei.
Yeah, but it's a real like waking nightmare sequence. Like it's a real, it's stunningly sort of laid out, and just the panic that he basically has a panic attack, because here he is being told, just stand there and look like Captain America. Just be the image, the superficial image, without any substance, without anything backing up, without any action, which is what Buddha has basically been mocking him for being.
Right. Yeah, this whole number that's supposed to evoke patriotism, and there's somebody as the Statue of Liberty, and there's an eagle image, and cannons firing, and all these girls dancing around Cap, and Cap just looks kind of taken aback.
Yeah, the sort of Busby Berkeley pageantry, to use Buddha's word. Just it's a nightmare for him, and I think it's a beautiful sequence. It's a really interesting just setup, and this idea of this is a version of America that's being presented by Hollywood to the world. That's not real. That's all artifice. Yeah. It's all pretend.
And it reminds him that that's what he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be a symbol of that kind of thing. You know, he wants to do for America and not just kind of symbolize America. You know, do the right thing for America. And he's still got these dancers. Now they're dancers in military uniforms. The other ones were in kind of sailor suits, kind of almost Japanese schoolgirl type uniforms. But now there are others who are more in kind of army type uniforms.
It is interesting because in the Captain America movie, we saw Captain America basically become a USO show.
Right, yeah. This kind of echoes that, or vice versa.
Sorry, I interrupted. I cut across you.
No, that's fine. And Cap has finally had enough of it. He says, "Hold it." I said, "Cut." And the director is angry, and now he's just shouting, "Buddha, if you can hear me, show yourself. I know you can reach me if you want to. It was you who spoke of America and the truth at the heart of it. I've still got to see it, Buddha." And now he's just in a dark place, can't see anything, and then there's a spotlight on him, and Buddha shows up again. "By the stars, sir, you must contain your emotions. Let's be calm." Cap says, "Be calm, you say? Be calm? You've led me into one maze after another. In search of the real America, you said. Well, I've been there, Shorty. I've seen the past, present, and even the muddy future. But this last farce, it was not a farce. There's nothing more American than a movie."
It's true.
"Don't pussyfoot around the issue, you weasel. You know what I mean. Where is the truth? What is the essence that makes all Americans stand up as one, no matter what their lot may be? Ah, now you are truly at the heart of the matter, sir. Your trip has helped you after all. It has made you think."
Oh, he's such a sarcastic little bitch.
And Cap's still upset. But he sees that the talisman on his palm is starting to fade. But now they kind of go together to this kind of peaceful, maybe southern, or certainly rural environment. And there's an old guy playing a fiddle. And Cap likes this. He'd like to stay here forever. Or for days, and he does actually say forever. I could stay here forever. But Buddha's like, nope, got to move on. And now they are, looks like in the present, 1976, looking in a window at an African-American guy who's studying, looking at a lot of books, taking notes. And Buddha says, "It's come upon us. We are in another place. You're right, but why here?" "It is you, sir," Buddha says, "who knows the answer. Once before, you gravitated to a child of the ghetto." I guess he's talking about Falcon. Yeah, he was a ghetto kid who wanted to make it. And so is this one. He isn't crying, he's trying. If this can't get quality education... if he can't get quality education, he's got enough guts and brain matter to go out and find it. Sure, that's it. That's truly America.
I hate this Bill Cosby shit. I really Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is where it starts to get pretty corny.
Yeah.
And then Buddha leaves him among some kids, maybe also in 1976, and they're all admiring of him, and they're all kind of spouting platitudes. We can be anything, girls too. And we end with a double page spread of Cap with these kids, and this is where it gets a little bit eye-rolly, but he's found the essence of America. Everybody can be what they want to be, theoretically.
The children are our future.
Yeah. Strike up the Whitney Houston.
Yeah. But I can't begrudge him it. You know, I understand. I'm frustrated by the sort of steamrolling over like social issues, racial issues, issues of education and access to services, access to opportunity, access to work, labor, self-improvement, whatever you want to call it, because there are limitations that are being deliberately placed. But I still can't begrudge him just the sentiment of these kids are what's important, and that's what matters, and what matters most of America is the promise of a better tomorrow. And I'm going, yeah. I mean, if you believe in it, if you believe in this idea of America, that is what you should be protecting. That's exactly what you should be trying to defend.
Well, and it was probably truer in the 70s than it is now.
See, I'm never comfortable with that, because I feel like there's a degree of defeatism that comes with that sort of statement, because things were terrible in the 70s. Really bad.
Sure.
You know, things are bad now. Things were bad 100 years ago. Things are bad 200 years ago. And I think we sort of have this moral scale where we look at the world and go, oh, well, you know, we lost our innocence and now we're really faced with the worst that humanity has to offer. And going, no, humanity is always pretty bloody bad.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just look through history. There's all kinds of bad crap. And that's the stuff that gets in the history books, the bad crap.
Yeah. But it's on you to do something about it. Mm-hmm. That's where, you know, you reach the difficult confrontation. It's like you need to actually do something. And I love the essence of this comic, which is that Captain America getting pissed. What's the thing now at the moment in the education system in the States? Critical race theory. This is a boomer losing his mind over critical race theory. Don't tell me how bad things used to be. You're stealing my hope. You're making me believe there's hope. Everything's hopeless. The left is just about hopelessness. I as part of my day job, I'm exposed to this kind of stuff all the time. These sort of rants. And I love that Captain America is basically echoing that sentiment. And then by the end of the comic, he's like, all right, I get it. Yeah, you know, it's important. We need to actually acknowledge where we've been and where we've come from. And we can't just hold ourselves up as this sort of calorie-free, insubstantial, not really meaning anything, not meaningful pageant, and that America needs to actually be something you fight for. But you fight to improve. You don't simply rest on the past and go, well, everything before now was great. And now everything's gone wrong. We need to get back to our values. No, we need to put those values in action and make the world better for tomorrow. That's what progression is. So he gets there. Cap gets there. I feel like Kirby sort of saw the opportunity of using this symbol to make a political point, and he made it. John Brown gets highlighted as, hey, John Brown's pretty good.
Yeah. I hope I never meet any kids who look like these kids, though. They're kind of nightmare fodder.
Oh, but the sun rises, the sun sets, and Jack Kirby still can't draw kids' faces.
Just like most 70s comics artists.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
They just didn't study drawing kids, apparently. They studied drawing 25-year-olds.
But this is a beautiful experiment and a statement by the co-creator of Captain America, to try and hold America to account with this character who has been used for propaganda and has been used to sort of steamroll any criticism. So it's interesting that in this bicentennial era, you have this, critical accounting of American history in a Captain America comic. That's great. There's something really beautiful about that.
Mm-hmm. Then we end up with some pin-ups. Mm-hmm. We got a pin-up of a colonial Captain America whose left foot is so far back I almost thought that he only had one leg. But it's way in the background. And then there's also behind him a Red Skull red coat with a swastika on his hat and a bomb in his hand. I'm not quite getting the dimensions of this picture, but anyway, it's kind of interesting.
It still works. The swastika existed. You can still do them.
Right, it did exist. I don't know how much it existed in Western culture at the time, but then we got a cowboy cap standing in, like a movie set Western city, and it looks like his shield has like frills on it.
He's got a sort of Native American aspect to the shield design.
His boots also have that. And then an astronaut cap holding a sign that says Mighty Marvel was here. Did Stan Lee have something to do with this caption?
Maybe. And he's part of the Apollo mission because he's got Apollo on his shield, the Apollo logo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a black and white one says, bonus, the man known only to his dedicated fans, Steve Rogers, the army reject who made comics history. And there are a bunch of villains who are like, who's he?
Did you ever see that Justice League cartoon where Lex Luthor takes over the Flash? Like he takes over his body and he goes to a bathroom and he says, now to reveal the identity of the Flash. And he takes off the mask and he says, I have no idea who this is. It's one of my favorite moments.
And then we have the back cover of the book, Cap and Uncle Sam with behind a America birthday cake, happy 200th birthday, with the Statue of Liberty on the top of it. And they're shaking hands. Cap says, congratulations, Sam, you're as young and fit as ever. And of course there are fireworks behind them and an eagle.
Mm-hmm. And we have Cap and the Hulk and Spider-Man doing a patriotic march.
We do?
There's another piece of cover art that I got in my edition.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that. And by the way, fireworks also have Kirby crackle.
Of course they do.
Right. So that's it. That's the Bicentennial Battles. Now, it's also the name of the trade that this appears in that has a few more issues in it, 201 to, I'm not sure, 203 or 4. We'll get to those in a future episode. Captain America's Bicentennial Battles is published by Marvel, both in the Bicentennial Battles trade, which includes Captain America and the Falcon issues 201 to 205, but also as a standalone publication. Emmet bought that one digitally and told me it included a calendar that came with the original Treasury edition. Thanks to our patrons for supporting Deconstructing Comics, Critiquing Comics, and our other podcasts. To join them, go to patreon.com/deconcomics. At deconstructingcomics.com, you can connect to us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky, and find links to subscribe to the podcast. You can comment on any episode on our site, leave us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com, or talk to us. Click the Leave a Voicemail link on the left sidebar of our site. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. Next week, in anticipation of this summer's return of the Fantastic Four to the movie screen, Kumar and Jordan from Comic Book Movie Oblivion join me to discuss the first Fox Fantastic Four movie from 2005. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.